many people out there have been speculating on, that Meghan Markle has lied about her age. Is she actually old?
What if the greatest royal illusion of the decade didn't come from the palace at all, but from Meghan Markle herself, because for years one woman, Samantha Markle, quietly hinted at a truth the world chose not to listen to.
Quote Tom Bauer by saying, he said, look, we all laughed at Samantha and she was right, and everything she said has come.
Meghan's story doesn't add up, because while the tabloids portrayed Meghan as a flawless, self-made Hollywood success, Samantha claims the numbers behind her so-called official age are just as questionable as her fairy-tale departure from the royal family.
There was something, in my opinion, missing in their eyes. It didn't seem real to me.
Every birthday post and every glossy turning 40 photo shoot raises the question of whether the candles were counting the wrong number all along, because this isn't just a family feud. It's a numbers game dressed up in designer coats and palace PR.
There's a very big difference. It was deliberate.
And here's the twist. When Samantha first spoke out, Meghan's fans dismissed her as jealous, bitter, and irrelevant. But time is a way of turning the narrative upside down, because now old magazines, family photos, and even hospital timelines are suggesting that Samantha's so-called wild theory may not be wild at all.
Tell you why. What she told the royal family, what she told Harry, wouldn't have jived, wouldn't have been consistent with the truth.
If Meghan truly edited her own timeline and the Duchess of Reinvention actually altered her age, then the royal truth isn't a crown but a costume. And once you start pulling that thread, the entire fairy tale begins to unravel, because behind every perfect Instagram caption there is always a draft you were never meant to see, and Meghan's draft may be hiding a completely different birthday.
There's nothing original here.
I hope you're having the best birthday you've ever had. Thank you for everything.
Which is really such a...
Before the world ever called Meghan Markle a duchess, Samantha Markle called her something else, a mystery surrounded by missing years. Because long before Netflix specials and palace statements, Samantha quietly held onto family memories that never matched the public timeline, with birthdays that moved, school photos dated incorrectly, and stories that failed to line up. And when she started asking questions, the world shut the door in her face, labeling her bitter and jealous, even though Samantha didn't have envy. She had receipts.
I remember when she was born, big new addition to the family, and we just have a very young sister here.
Childhood moments where Meghan claimed to be 9 even though family photos showed a teenager, and milestones that seemed to shift on paper as if her life had been edited in post-production. Weren't Samantha throwing shade at all, but instead her connecting dots the media refused to examine, because every time Meghan's brand shined brighter, Samantha's warnings were pushed further underground. Yet she never backed down, since in her view this wasn't gossip but geometry. The numbers simply didn't add up, and no amount of royal sparkle could balance the equation.
When she said, I lost my father, we knew that she didn't lose our dad, she iced our father.
When Samantha finally went on record, she wasn't ranting but appealing to reality, suggesting that if Meghan could lie about something so small, then what else might not be real? And that single line quietly cracked the polished surface of Meghan's public image and spread like a rumor that refuses to fade, because once one domino falls, the rest inevitably follow. Yet Samantha wasn't alone in noticing, since her father Thomas Markle was paying attention, and when he eventually spoke, everything Meghan had built began to wobble, because what Thomas recalled next didn't just question her story but completely turned it upside down, as Thomas Markle never intended to become part of a royal mystery and was simply a proud father with a camera, capturing birthdays, school plays, and life's milestones.
Her childhood was with me.
But years later, when Meghan's official biography reached the press, something felt off, because the dates looked too perfect and the timelines far too polished, as Thomas remembered driving a teenager to auditions at a time when the record claimed she was barely in middle school, and at first he questioned his own memory, thinking the years might have blurred together, yet old photos told another story, with captions, certificates, and memories that stubbornly refused to align with the official Meghan Markle timeline splashed across magazines.
There's nothing original here.
The more Thomas compared, the stranger it became. Because if Meghan was born in August 1981, why did family events, transcripts, and letters place her several years older? And to Thomas this wasn't royal intrigue but arithmetic gone wrong. As he would say, I know how old my daughter was when she got her first car, her first job, her first heartbreak. Yet none of it matched the story the palace and Meghan's PR team presented to the world.
I got it through high school, I got it through college.
When he carefully pointed out these discrepancies, the media labeled him confused, yet Thomas wasn't mixing up dates. He was remembering details etched into a father's mind. The graduation dress, the birthday dinner, the year printed on a forgotten family Christmas card. And that's when he realized something more significant was wrong, because if the woman in palace press releases didn't match the girl he had raised, then a rewritten narrative had been sold, And he unknowingly still had the original script.
She delivered it like an actress delivered it.
Apparently for me that doesn't.
But it only took one forgotten magazine page to show that Thomas's memories weren't mere nostalgia. They were evidence, and that clue was about to ignite the internet. Because for years Meghan's defenders insisted there was no proof, only family stories and hazy recollections, until the internet uncovered something indisputable. Ink on paper. A March 1997 issue of 17 magazine listing Meghan Markle as 21, right there among a group of young women in a lifestyle feature, not 15, not 16, but 21. Printed, published, archived, and that single line shifted the debate from speculation to documented fact.
In my opinion, she would still be a waitress if it wasn't for Dad.
If Meghan was officially born in 1981, she would have been a high school sophomore that spring, not old enough to appear as an adult model. Yet there it was, clear as day, long before royal fame or PR polish could shape the story. And while people tried to dismiss it, maybe a typo, maybe another Meghan, even skeptics had to admit the odds of that were tiny, because the photo, the name, and the California connection all fit too perfectly. So how could her age be so wrong? Suddenly Samantha's jealous sister rant no longer seemed like envy. It looked like foresight, as that magazine page became the first tangible proof of an alternate timeline, one that existed long before the cameras, crowns, and chaos, because digital rumors can disappear and tweets can be deleted, but print doesn't lie, and that 1997 page wasn't just an article. It was a smoking gun quietly waiting for the world to notice. When two timelines collide, only one can survive, and Meghan's may not be the one written in ink, as by now two versions of Meghan Markle's life are facing each other. One carved in royal ink, the other sketched in pencil by those who actually lived it.
How can you get your age so wrong?
The official Meghan, born August 4, 1981, moves through life with carefully timed public milestones. School in Los Angeles, acting breakthroughs in her 20s, royal fame in her 30s, perfectly linear, perfectly curated. While the other version, the pencil sketch Samantha and Thomas describe, shows a Meghan who was already a young woman by the mid-90s, appearing in magazines aimed at adults, suggesting not just bent timelines but possibly a complete rewrite, because in one version she's 37 when Archie is born, and in the other she's already in her early 40s, and that's not a rounding mistake, it's an entirely different story.
This is a copy of 17 magazine. It was published in March of 1997. In it, it mentions our Meghan is from Los Angeles and that she was 21 years old at the time of publication. That would make her birth year at around 1976.
The contrast feels like two parallel scripts, one polished for press releases, the other scribbled in family scrapbooks, as the palace stands by the official records while the evidence quietly suggests something different, leaving the question: which version is real, the glossy biography or the one that never left the editor's desk? If the ink timeline was designed for image, the pencil version feels dangerously human, messy, unfiltered, and far less royal. And when you line up those two ages side by side, another question emerges: how do the pregnancies fit into either timeline? Because if the math is off there, the illusion begins to crumble everywhere.
There is something that is not connecting. There is something that is not right.
When Meghan announced she was expecting, the headlines celebrated a royal miracle at 37, cameras flashed, fans cheered, and the palace called it perfectly timed. Yet behind the glamour, the numbers suggested something else, because if the mid-70s birth year is even close to accurate, that would make Meghan 42 or 43 when Archie was born, an age doctors consider high risk. And that single detail overturns the entire fairytale pregnancy narrative, since pregnancies past 40 usually require extra monitoring, advanced screenings, and extended hospital stays, none of which match the effortless image presented to the world, with bump photos looking editorial-ready, timelines airtight, and recovery almost cinematic, too smooth, too edited. While medical professionals quietly noted what tabloids ignored: older mothers face higher risks, longer recoveries, and stricter post-birth observation. Yet Meghan's story unfolded like a spa brochure: candles, smiles, perfect lighting. And if she was truly in her 40s, the secrecy around her delivery suddenly makes sense. The private hospital, undisclosed medical staff, and missing birth certificate details were all part of the same script of control.
But if you look at this, Meghan Markle has been incredibly quiet about the birth, but mostly the pregnancy of these children. Everything has been shady. The one who's been blabbing and saying crazy things is Prince Harry.
And that's where the age question stops being cosmetic and becomes critical, because age isn't just a number. It shapes risk, recovery, and reality. And if the math shifts even slightly, the truth behind those carefully staged photos shifts too, while Harry's own memoir would soon reveal something no PR team could erase, as the details of that birth didn't align with standard hospital practices at all. Prince Harry's memoir aimed to humanize the couple, but instead it unintentionally undermined their fairy tale, with his warm depiction of Archer's birth sounding picture-perfect: soft music, flickering candles, calm voices, 2 epidurals, and a glowing Meghan walking out of the hospital just hours later. Cinematic, almost too cinematic. Yet medical experts didn't swoon. They raised eyebrows, because Portland Hospital, known for luxury maternity care, still enforces strict post-epidural monitoring, with patients typically observed for several hours, sometimes overnight, making walking immediately after multiple epidurals physiologically impossible. And yet in Harry's retelling, Meghan was up, radiant, and headed home before the ink on the paperwork dried, leaving doctors quietly noting the inconsistencies, the discharge timing, missing recovery details, and the logistics of leaving a secure London hospital while newborn checks were supposedly still underway.
And when you're pregnant, there's not a pillow under your skirt. And there's live footage of her walking towards camera with her abdomen swaying left to right in the black and white checkered.
Everything about the timeline felt compressed, creating a clear contradiction. Either Meghan's delivery defied standard medical procedure, or the story had been shaped for image, and if it was the latter, the question becomes, privacy or performance? Because hospital protocols aren't flexible fairy tales, they are hard science, and Harry's dreamy account clashed with every medical guideline available. When the exact hours of that night were reconstructed, the illusion completely unraveled, as the math didn't just bend, it broke. According to Harry's own words, Meghan delivered, received 2 epidurals, recovered, and left Portland Hospital in roughly 2 hours. 2 hours, barely enough to process anesthesia, let alone safely discharge a new mother and newborn. Medical professionals reviewing the account called it physically improbable, noting that after an epidural, patients typically remain under observation for at least 6 hours to ensure leg strength returns and vitals stabilize, making walking immediately afterward a Hollywood fantasy. Yet in Harry's story, Meghan stood, smiled, and headed home as if she had just finished a photo shoot.
A doctor has come forward and has absolutely revealed, and you're going to listen to her. She has absolutely revealed and confirmed that Rachel Meghan Markle was never pregnant, never gave birth to any children.
Then there's the drive, about an hour from Portland Hospital to Frogmore Cottage, and when you factor in post-birth checks, baby transfer, security coordination, and paperwork, the timeline completely collapses, because it isn't just tight. It's impossible, as no royal convoy moves that fast without cutting corners or the truth. Even supporters began whispering, why the rush? What was so urgent that a medical event had to be condensed into a montage? Some suggest privacy, others image control, but either way, the story's precision feels suspiciously cinematic, with every beat choreographed to perfection. If Meghan truly left within hours of labor, she bypassed medical norms respected even in the most discreet royal births. And if the account was shaped for optics, it raises a haunting question. If they edited the timeline of a birth, what else in this royal narrative was rewritten for effect? Because a 2-hour miracle makes a striking headline, but in reality, it's a script that simply can't exist. Every celebrity reinvents themselves, but Meghan Markle didn't just rebrand. She rebuilt. As her transition from supporting TV actress to global duchess wasn't evolution, it was transformation by design. With every interview, every quote, every Instagram caption acting like brushstrokes painting a new version of her, one immune to her past, her critics, and perhaps even her own timeline. And while Hollywood calls it image control, the palace calls it optics, and Meghan mastered both.
Here, the doctor talks about both the children. And listen to what she says.
So you tell me to tell you something that maybe a dozen people actually know that's going to come out very soon. Okay. Meghan Markle, the reason why you watch her interviews and she just seems off, she's owned by a pharmaceutical company. The 2 children that she had, they're not hers. She didn't have them with Harry. And how her and Harry met is that she's a prostitute.
By the time the royal spotlight landed, the woman who walked into Buckingham Palace wasn't the same one her family remembered. She had become a new construct, with her age adjusted, narrative streamlined, and edges softened for mass appeal, the messy parts deleted and inconvenient dates blurred. It wasn't just vanity, it was survival, because in the world Meghan entered, perception is reality, and once a story ignites on a global scale, correcting it becomes impossible. You can't fact-check a fairy tale, you can only decide whether to keep believing it. That's what makes Samantha and Thomas' memories so powerful. They aren't alternate facts, they are anchors, pulling the image back to something unfiltered, something human, something the palace machine can't polish. So maybe this was never just about age, maybe it was about control, about owning the story before anyone else could, because in Meghan's world, truth isn't something you live, it's something you edit, and once the edit sticks, the world forgets there was ever a first draft. When you line up the clues, Samantha's memories, Thomas's timelines, the 17 magazine proof, and that impossible hospital story, one thing becomes clear. Meghan Markle's public image didn't just evolve, it was engineered, a life edited frame by frame until even the dates bent to fit the narrative. Maybe it started as harmless branding, maybe it became habit, but when every detail from age to pregnancy begins to look rehearsed, the line between authenticity and performance disappears.
You're wondering, why does her age matter at all? Because her age would also have an impact on her ability to have children. Because if Meghan Markle is 4 years older than what we have been led to believe, it makes it even more difficult to believe that she was able to get pregnant so quick.
This isn't about envy or gossip. It's about how easily truth gets lost when the cameras never stop rolling. And if this story made you wonder what else might be carefully hidden behind that polished royal curtain, you need to see what happened next, because in our last deep dive, a certain outspoken British host stunned live television when he revealed never-before-seen Soho House photos and dropped a truth bomb the world wasn't prepared for. A moment that changed how many people viewed Meghan's rise and directly connects to everything you just heard. So before you scroll away, click and keep watching. Because that investigation doesn't just uncover more secrets, it explains why this entire illusion may have been crafted from the very beginning. You're watching Star Spotlight, where the lights are bright but the truth burns brighter. So stay tuned, hit subscribe, because the next revelation is already on the way.